Welcome, everybody. This is the Crash and Church Show. I am Crash.
And I am Church. We are going to talk today. I was going to say come to you, but we're not coming in. We're not going anywhere. We're
brought to you by our good friends at Guys Shoes. Buy them, wear them. Guys Shoes.
So we wanted to talk today about... I'm not used to do. We changed our just for the audience. If you are listening, we changed our camera angle based on some feedback. So we're talking at the camera now, and it's a habit that we're still getting used to is to talk to the camera. So I'm like looking over here. So hello. We wanted to talk today. We wanted to do our final review of Rings of Power, the last episode, which we're not going to spend a lot of time on, I don't think. And then we're going to talk about just Hollywood in general and kind of the era of wokeism and how it is destroying everything and is terrible. So what did you think of Rings of Power episode? And we haven't talked about this, by the way. This is fresh to both of us, what the other one thought. So what did...
we didn't do our review last week. I hated the last episode, which was the episode
which I
just
didn't
after.
hate it. Yeah, and then I think I'll be hated for not hating it because apparently everybody hated it.
It was so bad.
But I actually kind of enjoyed it. No. I liked the dialogue. I liked the intrigue. I liked the way it developed. Yeah, it didn't have the action and things like that, but it was...
You said it was like your favorite episode so far.
I enjoyed it the most of all the episodes so far. Yeah.
Yeah, and I thought it was one of the worst.
So you want to just really quickly explain what you didn't like about it, and then...
Okay, so this is for episode 7. So today was the release of episode 8, the season finale, but last week was episode 7. This was after the volcano in Mordor, Mount Doom, erupts, and it leaves everybody hanging at the end of episode 6. And then they go to this episode, and it's just a snooze fest, in my opinion. It was absolutely, completely boring. It dragged on and on and on. Nothing exciting happened. It was horrible storytelling, in my opinion. And there were a lot of unanswered questions that we still don't know what's going on, even after episode 8. Where is Isildur? So we know that he survives. He has to survive because he cuts the finger off of Sauron's hand.
Yeah.
And
I don't mind the lingering mystery.
Well, yeah, but you would think that they would bring that back in this last episode.
I accept that as valid feedback, even though I didn't find it a snooze fest, but I can see how someone would. So,
I liked a little bit of what was happening with the dwarves, but I still pretty much just
the arguments and the direction they were going with that. I found it interesting, and I found it interesting what they did with the queen, making her blind, and
the Númenórean queen,
even the direction,
queen regent,
and even the direction they went with Galadriel and stuff. I found it overall interesting. I liked how they put her together with the young kid of Bronwyn's kid, and was telling him, I really enjoyed how she said, don't let this consume you. It's consumed me and it's destroyed my life. I thought that was a great direction to go with her, to recognize that the fact that the reason why she's unlikable and the reason why she's so single-minded is because she let that capture her, and to address that by telling him to not let that happen to him and stuff. So I found it interesting. So.
Yeah, that was okay. I kind of agree with that. There were some good moments like that,
right? But you just found it boring.
It was so boring. The one of the most boring parts, and it's just like they keep doing this in every episode. They stretch things out so long, and so the part where they're hiding underneath the fallen trees, and the orcs come by, and then the one orc hears the kid start to unsheath his sword, and the orc comes out and he starts looking around, and they're going back and forth between them trying to hold their breaths, trying to be as silent as possible, and then the orc was looking around, and they just kept going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and it just dragged on.
I was thinking what they should have done in that part is had the orc be like, after they said, "Come on, let's go, we're wasting time," the orc would have been, "Just a minute," and then been like zip, and then urinated on him accidentally while they're underneath going, "Ah, ah."
Well, right? That actually would have been funny. Would have been really funny, and that would have been good to put in there. But I think anything that can be taken away from Rings of Power is there's virtually no humor in it whatsoever.
Right.
In other words,
it's pretty bad on the humor
at creating any type of humor. And there was humor in the Lord of the Rings. There was humor in The Hobbit. Yeah. Even when things, during the movies, when there were serious parts of it, it was just.
And their attempts at humor have fallen mostly short. There are a few things with the dwarf.
Oh, they're flat.
Yeah, a few things with the dwarf were funny.
Yeah. The part where Durin totally gets them to the elves to give him the table was freaking fantastic. That was really funny.
So,
but
dragging things out actually does tie that idea of dragging things out does tie into my review of episode 8, in that. One of my biggest critiques of episode 8 is how quickly they did what they did. Like, it really, they didn't spend enough time doing what they should have spent time on because they'd wasted so much time doing other things, dragging out the rest of the season. And then they just kind of threw everything together in the end to do these revelations.
They threw the making of the rings at the very end, like the very end.
Yeah. I don't know. It felt rushed. It felt, it was Halbrand is Sauron for
Halbrand is Sauron.
Spoilers.
Yeah, you called
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, if you're watching this and you're seeing a review, come on. I mean, if you haven't
every
seen
review
the movie,
out there
is
already indicated that. So, but the way that they revealed him to be Sauron and the way they handled it was so clunky. Like, it was not well done. It wasn't cool.
Nope.
At all.
Nope.
And I was quite let down by it. So my overall response to this last episode is one of the worst episodes.
Yeah, absolutely. It was horrible. I do not like the Elvish King. He's a wimp.
Right.
I still don't like.
He's the only
Elrond.
one who's technically, though, wary of what they're doing with the rings smartly. So
well, he didn't know about the rings. He thought it was going to be a crown,
right? But still wary of what they were doing.
Power.
Wary of that power to control the unseen world, and so he's showing a level of intelligence there. But it doesn't explain the fact that it's still handled very clunky. Like, it's really, really clunky. When she finds out, Galadriel finds out that Halbrand is Sauron. And then her immediate response is she runs to him and she says, "We got to make the rings anyway." Like, just the way that was handled was like, I see the idea. It could have been kind of cool, but instead it was just like, are you kidding me? Like, it was so out of character for her even.
They went from one thing to another. There was the fact that she even kept that information from Elrond was just ridiculous.
Which information?
That the evil one has returned, that he's been found, and that Halbrand is Sauron.
Oh, the fact that after she found that out that she didn't say it.
You would think that she would disclose it immediately.
Yeah, what the heck? Yeah, exactly.
But she decides to keep it to herself, like it's not only her fault, but that she has to do it because otherwise she looks really, really bad because she was the one that brought him there.
Maybe. Who knows?
It would have been totally good to say something like, to the effect of, "We have been deceived this whole time. The evil one was amongst us."
Yeah, and it should have been something more like, "Where's Halbrand?" And she should have been like, "He's Sauron," yelling at him or something.
Yeah. And then immediately there's a sense of urgency to create the rings and protect themselves and to make sure that they are not
which even
wilting away.
The creation of the rings, I don't think a lot of this is canon anyway, but the whole idea that all they needed to do to make the rings of power was mix mithril with gold and silver from Valar, or is it Valinor?
Valinor.
The Valar are the beings. That's right. So Valinor, and that's what makes them rings of power. It just didn't feel right to me. Like, we don't know a lot about the way, because it's left as this, loose magic. It isn't concretely explained on, anything. That's the way Tolkien's magic system was not hard magic. So, you don't really know how the wizard's powers work. You don't really know how the rings work. You don't really know the explicit details of everything that happens and how they work and what they do. But you still you get a sense that the forging of the rings was somehow done magically, right? Like that there was some sort of magic used or some sort of power infused. And we do know that the One Ring, at least, that Sauron injected his malice into that ring somehow through
his cruelty, his malice, and his will to dominate all life.
And he put that into the ring, implying that he did that magically somehow, not that he just, was mad when he made the ring.
Yep.
And these rings that are rings of power, the implication is there too, that somehow there was power injected into the rings, that it's not, and they have different, in the lore, the rings, the 3 rings of the elves have different powers. They don't have the same power, each of them. And so, like, they just blended, like the solution was they blended the mithril with gold and silver from Valinor, and now they're rings of power. I don't know. It felt really flat to me. It felt really poorly thought out.
And I think too that this idea that mithril has it by itself some magical power that they've introduced into this.
Yeah,
again,
they've really turned it into that
And in the
kind of
in the lore, in the lore itself, mithril is just very hard. It's extremely light and it's very hard.
Maybe there may be more to it that we're just not aware of, but
maybe I'll look into it.
It feels like they're
more,
stretching with it though a little bit.
They are. It's like the whole midichlorians thing from the Force, instead of actually being a mystical force that controls all things, like Han put it, but. Instead, now it's in the blood. It's something that's living in the cells of human or of all beings, and it's so ridiculous. I just so disappointed. And now the whole thing with the Harfoots, you want to talk about dragging it on. That goodbye between Nori and the Harfoot villagers.
That was long, yeah.
It was so long. Like, I actually told my son, holy cow, just move on. This is ridiculous. And it really does seem like the writers of this show are really struggling to write content so much. It's not even the writers, it's drag it out.
Right, because you could very rarely in Hollywood does the script that's actually written end up being what's on, like, word for word on the screen. That's very, very uncommon. The director does, has such a big hand in it, as well as the costume and the lighting and the cinematographer, and everybody has their hand in it, the producers, and they make changes and they make edits. The editing room, for example, has a huge effect on what the final product is. So I don't know that you could fully blame the writers. There's clearly
so the editors definitely had that.
The director. I think the director and the editor are as much to blame as anyone, but poor writing too. So I'm not trying to take blame away from the writing. It's just that the whole production seems really kind of weak in everything. There's a few things they do strongly. So I can't say everything, because there are a few things that are done well and I've enjoyed and thought that was cool, but it's kind of few and far in between. And realistically, what you'd expect of this series is that, realistically, what you'd expect of this series is that everything would be cool. Like, it would just be cool after cool after cool. Like, everything would just be like, whoa, that's so awesome. And just not. Even most of the things that they try to be cool, it feels like they're trying to be cool, and it's not as cool as it should be.
No, it's really bad. And the Harfoots really, I want to call them the Harfootesses, because it's all just a bunch of women that are basically running everything.
And then they killed off their leader, and now the women are taking over and being the leader, and
it's going to be the new finder
to
the leading. Yeah,
to a young girl.
the Pathfinder, and it's like,
and it felt so woke. Like it was just,
it very woke.
That one was one of the few that I was really like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, and the whole Gandalf thing. So I mean, obviously we all knew that he was Gandalf from the beginning,
and I'm glad he was. That's one I'm glad that they didn't.
Yeah,
I think it would have been disappointing if he wasn't.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now again, it's disappointing to me that Gandalf is not an old man, because he is supposed to be an old man. The Ishtar are supposed to have the look and the appearance of old men.
Right. That doesn't bother me as much. If the writing was great and the way they handled everything was great, I'd forgive things like that. It just wouldn't bother me.
I thought the way that he revealed himself and overcame the witches was really good. They were.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
There was no but there was no explanation. Who were they?
Yeah. Well, maybe that remains to be seen. So I could forgive that, but I don't know. I think you mentioned to me earlier when we were talking about it tonight, which I think even now we've talked about it longer than we meant to. But we were both like, oh, we have to watch it then. And both of us, it felt like, it was like, okay, we got to sit down and force ourselves to watch it. And it's a chore to watch it. It felt like a
chore.
Yeah, and I enjoyed it okay-ish. Like I still don't think it's as terrible as, I think there's bias, where people, they want Tolkien and they're not getting Tolkien, so they hate it because it's not living up to their expectations. That's a perfectly fine way to feel.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's necessarily has to be that way for everyone. It's not for me. Like, I wouldn't mind it being just like Tolkien. I wish it was better than it was as a show, even if it didn't have, if it wasn't quite as connected to Tolkien. Like, if they handled the story that they're telling better, then I would give it a higher rating, and I'd love it, despite the fact that it's not quite, and like the things like, the elves having shorter hair or whatever, those things, I could let go of those things if it was really great storytelling and telling a great story. But instead,
and if they had a non-1990s hairdo,
right, and instead it's, my end result is I'm walking away feeling like the overall thing was 4-ish maybe. And
this last episode was very boring,
and I don't know that you can call it
exciting.
Like I think people are saying, would argue that it's a 1 or a 0, even that it's just terrible and stuff. And I think that's just unfair. It's not that bad as a show, and I think it's bias that comes into that. But still, it's only a 4 for someone who's moderately forgiving of it and isn't having all those biases playing. And it's still,
to me, I am a hard 3
on the overall series. Has gone down to a 3.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You've kind of embittered against it in the last few weeks. Yeah.
Well, it was really the last episode.
It was
not today's episode, but last week's episode. Last week's episode was so bad that I was like, I don't even want to watch, but I felt like I had to because it's the season finale. And if we are going to talk about it, we have to have
so much into it that you want at least, let's see how it finished and stuff. Which,
well, my expectation, I think this was the expectation of everyone, in my opinion. I don't think it's so much about wanting Tolkien. I think it was so much because what Peter Jackson and Fran Walsh did with the Lord of the Rings trilogy, tried to do with the Hobbit trilogy, but did with the Lord of the Rings trilogy, was what most people were expecting. They wanted that emotion, that really, really good storytelling. They wanted the same look. They wanted the same feel. That's how this was sold.
Yeah, the same sort of comedy. And it really is a victim of wokeism.
Not how we got.
I think it's a victim of wokeism.
Yeah.
And that's not to say that everything is woke in the show, but it is to say that there's enough woke in the show. And I think what's happened here is pretty clear, is that their priorities were screwed up. Their priorities were to be representative, and their priorities were to tell female empowerment, and their priorities were to try to weave that thing into their vision of Tolkien, instead of taking Tolkien and telling a good story and having great comedy and great, storytelling, et cetera, all that sort of things being the priority. And instead, their priority is all of that. I'm not saying they don't have that priority at all. It's just tainted, I think, by their agendas. And it's just another example of Hollywood being destroyed by wokeism. And I think it's a consistent narrative that we're seeing again and again and again. And so I bought this book. A lot of you listening may know already. that I write. I'm a writer myself. I write, my preferred medium for writing is musical theater, but I write my own stories for it, and I develop my own stories. So I have to kind of learn about good story writing. And so I bought this book called My Story Can Beat Up Your Story. I don't remember who it's by, but you could look it up if you want to. And so I've been reading this book, and I'm not very far into it yet, but just the premise of it is basically that there are principles of good storytelling that if you follow these stories, these principles, then you can, by rote, sort of create great stories and great story arcs. And what we've seen in Hollywood over the past, I don't know how long. How long has it been going downhill, do you think? Like it's been
20 years at least.
20 years, yeah, going downhill, but it kind of really steeply has gone downhill. Since about Captain Marvel.
6 years.
Black Panther and Captain Marvel, around that time period is where things started just really tanking.
That's when wokeism really started taking over mainstream. I agree with that.
And it just tanking the quality of movies. Black Panther is one example where I think Black Panther kind of slipped under the radar and got renowned for various reasons, none of which were because it was a great story and a great movie. I think people are blinded to how not a great movie it really is not a very good movie. The story is not done very well. I'm not a fan of Black Panther.
it's an okay story.
It's okay.
But it definitely, but
it's
certainly
weak. It's
not
one of the weaker entries.
Yeah. It was billed by so many people as the greatest superhero movie of all time, and it's not.
And then Captain Marvel, which, Captain Marvel was an okay show, but just like, once again, it had just wokeism sort of causing issues with it.
Captain Marvel was horrible.
You didn't like it as a show?
I like Nick Fury's character.
I didn't hate it as a show overall, but I think it could have been a lot better. I think there's bias in there because one of the things that's happened in Hollywood as well is Hollywood needs to get contracts from their actors that they will shut up. Because one of the problems with Captain Marvel, I think, is that Brie Larson opens her mouth and she alienates people, and people are then biased and are going to hate whatever she does, whether it's good or not. They're going to hate it.
And that's exactly what the cast of Rings of Power
and the Rings of Power have done the same thing. And yeah, it's sort of a consistent narrative where you see these actors just ruining their movies. And I cannot help but think that the studio wants it. Like I say the studio should get contracts and not let their actors do that. I can't help but think that the studios want it because the studios have the same agenda and the same thoughts of the actors.
They do. Of course they do.
There's something just filthy in the water going on that is, and it's destroying cinema. It's destroying storytelling because the priorities are wrong. Instead of the priorities being the good points of how to develop a good story and to tell a good story and the story arc and the way that all works, which is why I brought up that book, which, I've learned those points before and stuff. I just, refresher and stuff, getting the book and stuff and new things that I haven't learned, of course, that I hope to learn. But those principles are being put on the back burner, right? The priority is this inclusiveness and representation and agenda that's related to politics and related to their social political agendas. And so we're seeing this just real crazy level of just tanked movie quality in the past there was 5-6 years, I would say.
There was I on one of my social media accounts, there was a feed that came through, and it was a reaction to, I guess there was a convention somewhere at some point in the last few days or week or whatever, and they were showing one of the guy who runs Marvel, and that he was showing a preview
Kevin
of Phase
Feige.
Yeah, so showing a preview of Phase 6 of Marvel. And everybody was screaming and yelling because that's what geeks do at conventions. And they started showing that there are going to be 2 new Avengers movies
the Kang Dynasty
in Phase 6. Yeah, Kang Dynasty, and there's another one. Anyway, everybody's yelling and screaming and everything. And
I'm not excited.
No, I'm not excited at all. And I actually quipped in a comment. I said, "Great, more wokeism from Disney and Marvel." Yep. And a couple of people actually agreed with me, but then there was one guy who started coming after me and
the
saying
defenders of
that, saying that I better get on with the world. This is the way the world is now, and I need to stop my archaic and obsolete
Which is
thinking.
The first statement, this is the way the world is now, is true.
No, it's false. It's absolutely, it's false.
Well, no, the way Hollywood is, the kind of movies we're going to get moving forward, this is the way the world is now.
That's not what he said. Okay, but that's not what he said. He and so we kind of went back and forth a little bit, and it came down to, he kept attacking me personally.
Of course.
He kept saying that because I was in Florida, I guess, blah, blah, blah. So he quipped about me living in Florida.
Yep, and you're a racist, and you're a Nazi, and
He quipped about me being old. He quipped about me being...
you are old.
Keep doing this.
Fair enough.
Yeah, hold on a second. This isn't done yet. So he was saying that the more I stand with or have my beliefs and my stance, the more my own child, this is what he said, the more my own child is going to embrace wokeism. And,
typical nonsense.
Which is absolutely patently false, because you know my son. So
well, it's not just false with your son. It's a false narrative that you hear all the time.
It is false.
Is that if you try to raise your children with good moral standards, that they'll rebel against it. That is the way it will always work. That's bull. That is total, absolute garbage. That is
complete
not true.
Garbage.
When you raise your children a certain way, children turn out that way, by and large. Now, there are times, there are situations where children will rebel. Of course.
Yeah, it depends on the way that they're taught as well.
If you look at, the way everybody believed 200 years ago, everybody grew up being raised a certain way, and they believed it. They didn't all rebel against it. They embraced it. The children grew up learning, and you could take the feminist, the general idea of what feminism, promotes now in the way that women should be equal, right, is totally out of line. And I don't mean equal like literally equal. I mean their idea of equal, right? Which is meaning women are just like men and superior to men, but somehow just like men, and men are not men. But anyway, if you take the way that people were taught back in, farming times and hunting times and pioneer times and that sort of thing, they were taught that women stayed home and took care of the house and churned the butter and raised the babies, and the men went out and worked on the farm and did the hard work and did the hunting and did all that sort of stuff. And guess what? Everybody believed it, because that's the way they were raised and that's the way they were taught. And there were a few who didn't believe it and rebel against it. There's always a few. There's the son who decides to run off to the city and go become a gambler or whatever. Of course. Yeah. You're going to have some rebels and stuff. But by and large, when you have a family where you raise a whole bunch of children, and you teach the boys to get up early in the morning and go work on the farm, and the girls to get up and sew and mend and churn, the women and the men both grew up believing that was what they should be doing, because families or what you teach your children is what I'm trying to say is what they believed, by and large.
These were traditions that went for millennia. So these aren't new or archaic, or it's really been in the last 10 years that's really been challenged.
That's a tangent, obviously. But
since the 60s, they've been doing this huge rebellion about labels and whatnot. But it's really been in the last 10 years that wokeism has really come to the forefront in mainstream media and entertainment.
Depends.
So anyway, so he went we went back and forth for a little bit, and so I decided, you know what? He's now attacked me 3 times personally, which shows the weakness in his argument. Because if you feel like you have to attack somebody personally, you have a weak stance. If that is your method of trying to win the argument, you have no merit in your argument. So he was doing this. So I decided I'm going to pop over to his profile. I'm going to see. So he's a middle-aged, our age, gay man who identifies himself as a cult leader. And among other things,
someone worthy of your respect.
Somebody who is completely not representing mainstream America.
And claims he does. Yep.
And so I just ended it there. I'm like, wow, I am not going to engage with somebody who obviously I'm not going to convince. I don't care about. He replied to my comment. I don't have to engage with him. And but I thought it was just really interesting.
Good lesson to learn.
But see, this is where someone like that thinks that's the direction Hollywood should be going. And of course, you and I think that the direction Hollywood should go is the direction that they went with Maverick, Top Gun Maverick, where they went with Spider-Man No Way Home. There are things that Hollywood, the entertainment industry, should be concerned about, and things that they absolutely should not be concerned about. In their personal lives, who cares? I don't care if they espouse those things. They can vote a certain way and try to get others to vote that way. But to use their platforms of media to sway, indoctrinate, and force everybody else to believe that the way that they do, and then to go after them if they don't, that is where I think they really cross the line. And obviously, and so many people believe that because we've got so many people in the United States that are now saying, enough is enough. We're just tired of it.
Yeah, and I don't fully agree with they can do what they want sort of ideology. I mean, obviously, I do literally. Did you hear what I said?
Right. Did you hear what I said? I don't care what they do in their personal lives. It does not have.
But I do.
Any
is
impact
what I'm saying.
On me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't fully agree with that in my view of things. I do care what they do in their personal lives, because what people do in their personal lives spills over to the public, as we see. I mean, that's exactly what we're seeing: is the personal lives is spilled over to the public, and it will.
If they are espousing the belief that, or at least showing the respect to allow other people to exercise their beliefs and express their opinions without reprieve, then why should I not afford the same? Now, I obviously do not agree with lifestyle choices that a lot of them make.
Well, let me be clear. I'm not saying, when I think, I'm talking about the difference between what I think they should do versus what I'm not suggesting we should restrict people from things. I'm not suggesting that they can't do, do what they want to do.
I don't agree with.
I'm suggesting what people should do. And I have a strong opinion on what they should do. And I won't apologize for that. I won't apologize for the general concept of you shouldn't be evil as a person, whoever you are. Like that's an opinion I'm going to hold. Even in your personal life, you shouldn't be evil.
We definitely espouse and encourage a moral society. We want to have a moral society. We want people to behave in a way that will build up other people and not tear them down like we are right now. Now, throughout history, there have been extremely evil, wicked people, but we don't see this this pattern of really widespread evil like we are today. And that's really just because of media. It's because we have the ability to touch people in real time.
It's allowing that personal evil to spill out even more. And that's one of the things, like where you have some kook with it used to be that you had some kook standing out on the street with a sign, saying he's a cult leader, espousing his opinion, and nobody took him seriously. And now that same person gets on Twitter and Facebook and wherever and espouses his opinion.
And he has 2 million followers.
And he has 2 million. Yep. And they're taken seriously. And that's been,
his initials are AOC.
The anonymity and platform that the internet has given has caused a lot of problems in that regard. But generally speaking, as people embrace evil into their souls, and they embrace selfishness, and they embrace these sorts of concepts with which you and I disagree, that's going to spill over eventually. Like, even without the internet, eventually it spills over. And you see that in society after society after society. The evil eventually spills over as people become selfish and corrupt. and it destroys societies. And we see societies fall because of it. And we saw that, you've seen that throughout history. And we're seeing it happen to our history.
Ready to see it again.
We're seeing it happen with our culture, where it's spilling over and it's going to destroy our culture.
So you, after our discussion earlier today, you decided that you are not going to watch Andor. Well, and I have decided. I've decided after this last episode that I am no longer going to watch.
Yeah. So first of all, just the injection of wokeism. I will not support Disney and wokeism. Won't support them in any regard. Secondly, though, and I think this, I wasn't wanting to watch it anyway. Like you had asked me, you said, "Hey,
it felt like a chore.
Have you watched Andor, the next episode of Andor?" And I was like, "No, I haven't yet." And then you told me about their new woke stuff in it, and which, in case anyone hasn't seen it and wants to be informed, I guess they have a lesbian couple that they've introduced.
There is now the only female fighters in the show right now. The only ones are a lesbian couple.
So anyway, I just kind of am like, I'm done. I want to watch it. So yeah, so we're not going to be reviewing that one anymore. We're just done. And
Well, I will give a quick review, just a quick brief overview. Andor
in 2 words.
Sucks.
There you go. 2 words. I was going to say 2 words.
Sucks. Yeah, it does.
Perfect.
Andor sucks. Not only does the show suck, it is really, really boring.
It's so boring. Yeah.
Drags on. It's gloomy. The characters are gloomy. Nobody's happy in the show.
You've got more than 2 words.
Everybody is gloomy. It's very boring. It's very depressing. And then Andor is a cold-blooded killer. He kills somebody else in cold blood in this episode,
right.
And it's going to be written off as noble, but
he's not noble yet. Yeah, like you can make
noble.
The argument in Rogue One that the decision he made could be noble because he was trying to actually free people and save people.
But it was a James Bond scenario.
Yeah, exactly. But in Andor, he's not yet. He's a mercenary, just out there trying to save his own butt and make money. And so he's just killing people because he's a murderer. Yep, exactly.
Yep. And so I decided after today's the episode that came out this week that that's it. I'm done. I can't get behind this. It's so bad, and it's really sad because this was one of the shows that I was really, really looking forward to.
I think you were more than I was because you liked Rogue One so much.
Way more because I loved it, and I was so excited with the prospect of seeing this evolution.
I think you just need to curb your expectations because I have no doubt.
I need to stop having any expectations. I mean, I'm not even excited, really, honestly, about the next Mandalorian.
That's what I was just going to say. If you're excited about the next season of The Mandalorian, better be prepared because the chances are, it's going to be something. They're going to do something. They're going to add something. They're going to change something. They're going to ruin it, and that's just the likelihood.
They got rid of Gina Carano because of her conservative views. And that to me was just that was a line that Disney, they really screwed up. Disney deserves every bit of criticism.
That was actually the line that got me to cancel on Disney. So
yeah, she was a great part of the show, and The Mandalorian by and large was so good. But isn't it interesting that in the Book of Boba Fett, the reason why it was so good was because The Mandalorian was in it, and they went with that real good storytelling. It was exciting. It had emotion.
But not everyone agrees with you on the Book of Boba Fett, but because it was boring. I think a lot of people in the first part.
It was boring.
It was quite boring. Yeah.
It was, but it wasn't until The Mandalorian showed up that it got good. Well, the last 3 episodes were good. Yeah, they were good. So. And but before that, I tolerated it, but it was boring. But yeah, I do think that now the next season is. But yeah,
the chances of anything being good, like I'll still give a shot to a few things here and there, with a little bit of hope. But I'm really quickly losing that hope, and I won't do anything sight unseen, especially not for my family. I'm going to get reviews and see what people are saying about it first and stuff because I just expect.
Well, we already know that Willow is woke.
Yeah, And well, I'm not even talking just in Disney. I'm talking in entertainment in general. I just don't anticipate there to be much of anything that's of worth moving forward. Like it's really
no. The storytelling today has been absolutely horrible, and you by and large have a very few. So we are going to talk about the best shows and the best movies in the age of wokeism.
You say that, and it's discouraging because I'm thinking through it, and you've mentioned them already, and we're done. It's like,
Top
okay,
Gun,
you got Top Gun
Maverick,
and Spider-Man, yeah.
And Spider-Man, those are the two best ones.
And that's about it. And it's just like, what else is there? I didn't like anything else. Like, I haven't really liked anything else.
Not very much.
Now to be fair,
probably are a couple.
Yeah, well, and we want to include in this, it's not just movies, obviously, because a lot of the entertainment that I do, that I consume is through, series and TV shows and those sorts of things. And that's been infected just as badly. And it really is just, there's nothing out there that I like for that either. Like I really kind of miss the days of having really great shows that I looked forward to seeing, and I just don't look forward to anything. I don't look forward to any of it. It's all terrible.
This morning I was taking my son to the doctor, and we were talking actually about the television shows of the 80s. And for some reason, I had a conversation at work with a couple of people at work yesterday, and we were talking about the show Magnum PI,
mm-hmm.
and it was because Tom Selleck was up for the role of Han Solo, and we just kind of got into a little conversation. Jones. That's what I said, yeah. Indiana Jones, and
same character.
It was
the same guy.
Yeah, it was Christopher. It was Christopher Walken that was up for the show, the character. Nick Nolte, I think, was up for Han Solo as well.
Yeah, several.
So anyway, there was we were talking about Magnum PI, so I brought that up to my son, that the 80s had really awesome shows, and it's really kind of interesting because you had Chips, which you look back now and these shows are really bad.
Some of them are really bad and don't hold up. Yeah. Magnum does. Magnum PI holds up.
Magnum PI absolutely does. Magnum PI was awesome. So Magnum PI, Miami Vice, say what you will, it was very popular back in the day.
Never really watched it.
But it was a good drama. A-Team? And the A-Team was fantastic.
Which it doesn't hold up quite as well for all of it, but it's still okay if you watch them. Remington Steele. It's one of my favorites.
I mentioned Remington Steele, and I mentioned,
which holds up okay.
I mentioned Moonlighting with Bruce Willis,
which I never liked.
Which I loved.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
I loved it. Yeah, I thought it was funny. So
and then of course, don't forget, you've got Murder, She Wrote.
I didn't like Murder, She Wrote.
I didn't either, but R.I.P. to Angela Lansbury, of course.
Yeah, couldn't have cared less about that show.
And then Diagnosis Murder.
But we didn't watch any of those. We didn't. My parents. But
I got to mention the most important one, Matlock. My wife will kill me if I don't mention Matlock.
Matlock.
My wife's a fan of Matlock. So
yeah, I don't care. Well, he was more of the 90s than the 80s.
I don't know.
That was definitely the 90s.
Is that more 90s?
So you had these shows on TV, and of course my parents watched Knots Landing and Dallas and whatnot. But then you also had the sitcoms of the 80s, which were really, really fun, like The Cosby Show. I know a lot of people didn't like Alf, but some people didn't like Alf. I loved Alf.
Never saw it.
I think kids liked it because it was puppet. And
I was more into Cheers in the 80s.
But you had Cheers, you had Family Ties, you had Growing Pains.
And then in the 90s, one of our favorites was the spinoff of Cheers with Frasier, which apparently they're rebooting. And that's one of those things where my wife and I actually love Frasier. No. We own Frasier and we've watched Frasier through many, many times.
Yeah, but don't reboot it. Don't reboot it.
Well, it's not reboot. Sorry. Did I say reboot? Because it's not, I guess.
You said reboot.
It depends on what you mean by reboot. It's a sequel. I mean, it's continuation. They're continuing it. So they're not rebooting it with a new character. It's Kelsey Grammer. Yeah, it's Kelsey Grammer.
Then I don't have a problem with that because Kelsey Grammer's anti-woke.
I wouldn't have a problem with it except for Kelsey Grammer's side. I expect it's going to be woke. I cannot see I cannot see him making it without making it woke somehow.
I don't know, because you have Tim Allen, and you had Tim Allen doing Last Man Standing, and Home Improvement was wildly popular, and then you had Last Man Standing, and he refused to have the mainstream leftist Hollywood.
Right, it had some things that were propaganda. A little bit nods to those things in Last Man Standing, but yeah, it wasn't the same way by any means. So
no, and so I would think that if Kelsey Grammer has anything to do with it, or he could very well be saying, guys, I'm not doing this if you're gonna bring that wokeism into the show. I'm not gonna do it.
Yeah, maybe.
And he would definitely have the power to do that. So
I'm not hopeful. Like I said, I've lost hope. So that's one that when I first saw it, I was like, oh, cool. One of our favorite shows being redone or being continued, and was kind of excited. And then I thought, don't get excited, because it's probably
we were really excited. Well, I think we were both really excited at the prospect of Willow. And then we found out about all of the wokeism that's in it, and the
which I think I'll still give that one a little bit of a shot until it's for sure woke. Like
one episode.
Just in case I misunderstood, I'll give it a shot. But yeah, I have less than like with something like doing Frasier, I have some hope, but it's pretty slim. And with Willow, I really have no hope, but I'll still.
So we've talked a lot about
is what I'll do.
We've talked a lot about the Karate Kid.
Mm-hmm.
We have talked a lot about, and the Karate Kid has been fantastic at keeping all wokeism out.
Cobra Kai. Yeah, you did the same thing as me. Call it Karate Kid.
Yep. Cobra Kai. Yes, they've done a very good job of keeping the wokeism out. They've just decided to tell a story, and it's been awesome. And then you have of course, Stranger Things. Stranger Things does have the stupid wokeism
it was hurt by wokeism, but it was still done well.
It was done well, but this last season, there were definitely a couple of moments in those episodes where I was like, you have got to be freaking kidding me.
It wasn't as bad as the previous season, but yeah.
I don't know, to make the kid gay and obviously in love with his best friend. They made it a big part of the show, and it was a very emotional moment between him and his brother when his brother came up and he was talking to him and whatnot, and they just absolutely made him effeminate. They made him to be pretty gay, and that they did that is absolutely, completely out of place with the story. What point do they have in it? What point in it is there to be in the show other than just to put it in there?
I actually don't have as much of a problem with that as I do with the girl in the previous season. I actually had a friend in high school, and I went to school in the 80s and stuff. And I had a friend in high school who, in later years, in fact, just recently in later years, like in the past 5 years, I learned that he was gay, and that he.
I think you misunderstand what I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say is it does nothing for the story.
But maybe
just like the argument.
Yeah, I see
what
you're saying. But let me finish my story anyway, because it goes to my point. So he was gay, and then he apparently. I don't think he committed suicide, but I think he just kind of drank himself to death through depression and stuff. And I may have that wrong, but since I'm not mentioning his name, it doesn't matter if it's exactly right. But it's tragic, whatever the exact details were of it. And looking back on the way he was in high school and stuff, and the way that he struggled for friendship and struggled for. He didn't like the girls and stuff, and who knows, may have been in love with me. I'm just kidding. Was probably in love with one of the people we hung with or whatever. You never know, right? So that story, that is a true story to the 80s, right? That is something that actually some people did face. So I understand what you're saying, though. What you're saying is that's not the story of Stranger Things. And so
Stranger Things. So the kid, he knew that his friend was coming to see Eleven for the most part. He was coming to see him, of course, because they were best friends. But he's also going to see Eleven, their boyfriend and girlfriend. So where is the expectation for him? Why is he so upset that he can't spend time with apparently his best friend?
Well, because he's lonely,
who he's in love with.
And that doesn't bother. Like I said, it doesn't bother me quite as much because.
Okay, but being lonely because your best friend is not paying attention to you is not the same as now you're in love with your best friend.
Right.
And so that's why I think it was so out of place. They wrote it horribly. If it would have been him being upset about spending time with Eleven more than with him, then I could understand. But instead they decided to make it because he was in love with her. And there's really no chance for him. I understand the struggle, it's fine, but have him struggle with somebody else, not with his best friend who has a girlfriend.
Unrequited love, it's a universal story, right?
Yeah. Whatever.
So yeah, that one.
It was forced. It was forced.
See, and that's the part I don't agree with fully. I do agree that I
Look, you and I both know that it can happen.
Right?
We both know that it can happen.
Yeah,
but what I'm saying is it doesn't help the story.
It makes me uncomfortable. You can, call me homophobic or whatever you want. It just like those sorts of things make me uncomfortable. They're not what I want in my entertainment. But I can appreciate the story. I can appreciate the struggle and that sort of thing. So I don't have a analytical judgment of it as much as I do just personally. It's not for me, if that makes more sense.
Well, again, if it's going to be in the story, make it because he's upset that he doesn't get to spend time with his best friend. Don't make it so because he doesn't get to spend time with the guy he's in love with.
All right.
Make it so because he can't spend the time with his best friend. He does miss his best friend, and try to say it in that way. And so it was a distraction from the story. And like you have we both said the same thing about the girl in the previous season and in this season.
That hurt the story.
What does it add to the story? What does it add to the story? Well, they built up this romance between.
It took away from the story.
They were building up this romance between the
guy and the girl. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy and the girl, and then all of a sudden they decide to make her gay.
It was highly disappointing, in fact, because you were excited about him. You were excited about that story. You're excited about that potential romance, how well they got along and everything, and then they just destroyed it for what? For nothing, except to just make you go what the heck? Why did you do that?
Yep.
Just for social justice points. It was terrible. It was a really, really bad choice on the writer's part. And
it was.
And so that one I absolutely do think was just, it was wokeism destroying the show. I don't fully agree with you on that in the last season. I don't feel like it hurt it as badly, but in the third season, there's no question. It's a prime example of wokeism destroying, hurting things.
I think it hurt it more because of it. And so, but you put those two things aside. Stranger Things 4 was really, really good. Or 5 was this? No, this was 4.
I don't remember.
Stranger Things 4, I liked it. I liked it
the
a
last
lot.
one.
I thought it was very, very good.
Yeah, it was good.
The last
episode
was really good.
Yeah, Stranger Things has been done overall well. I definitely put it all up there as one of the good pieces of entertainment in the woke era.
Yep.
Despite some of the wokeism.
We both really liked Lost in Space. It was only 3 seasons, but we both really liked it. I thought that was very good.
I didn't like the last season quite as well, but I liked it, yeah.
Yeah, so, and then you have, I've been trying to get into some shows on Amazon Prime, and I just have struggled a little bit trying to get into them. I haven't gotten into.
Yeah, I struggled to get into almost everything.
Yeah, there's the new Chris Pratt series on Amazon Prime.
And, which got great reviews and people really liked it.
Great reviews, but I couldn't get past the first episode. It was so dark.
It was really dark, and it was not. I don't think it was as good as the reviews are giving it. It was.
No, I don't think it is, and so I just don't like it that much. Like I said, I only watched 1 episode, and I just can't bring myself to watch the others.
All right.
So I find myself actually going back and watching the old shows that I used to watch.
So my wife and I right now, what we're watching, we watch a little bit of TV before bed usually most nights, and what we're watching right now is the series Bewitched from the 1960s.
Love the Bewitched
That's
show.
what we're watching.
Did you ever see the movie?
Yeah, but I don't really remember it too much. I don't remember loving it.
It was good.
But
I thought
you know,
it was
we
good.
grew up on the, and some people would claim that Bewitched is woke, but that's because it's like they do with everything. They try to inject homosexuality into everything. That the fact that she's a witch in the closet represents homosexuality and stuff. And whether or not
is that really what it is?
I don't think
that's
so.
What it is.
I think
Absolutely
it's retconning. They're retconning it to that a little bit.
Absolutely.
But even if Elizabeth Montgomery secretly all the time thought that that's what she was doing or something, who cares? I didn't read it that way as a kid, and I still don't. No. Right? And so
no, it was a fun show. It was funny. It was great. I love the old Dick Van Dyke Show. Mm-hmm. So another show that I really liked, especially so in the 90s, you had the 90s was really the era of sitcoms, and you had shows like Seinfeld, Mad About You, Friends,
Frasier.
You had Frasier. You had Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which I watched every Friday night.
Which I have not seen. I think you must have watched more TV than I did back then.
Back in the 90s?
I never saw Mad About You.
That show.
And I've only seen
I really like that
maybe half of Seinfeld. And even then, I never really liked it. I didn't get through the whole episodes with Seinfeld. For some reason, it never clicked with me. But
Seinfeld
Frasier and Friends,
awesome.
I obviously... Frasier obviously is what I mean, because I've already mentioned that. But Friends is
so then you had... but then
Friends
you also
was pretty
had
woke,
Boy Meets World.
But it was a different time. It was a different time.
Yeah.
The wokeness wasn't as agenda driven. It didn't feel as in your face, and it didn't feel like the.
No.
That being said, I always skip the lesbian wedding episode. We always skip. It's just not. Well, like I said, that doesn't appeal to me for entertainment. So.
Well, then you had the Ellen DeGeneres show, and
which I never saw.
It was a really, really funny show. And then once she came out in real life and on the show, every episode became about that.
Right. So that was agenda. That felt,
and it was horrible. And it actually is why the show's ratings went down.
Is Mad About You? No, not Mad About You. What's the one? News Radio. Did you ever watch News Radio?
I loved News Radio.
I haven't seen a ton of them, but the ones I've seen, I liked it. Yeah, I liked that.
I really liked
the original
Radio.
Joe Rogan.
So funny
back in the day. Yeah.
Yep, so. Exactly. Yep, when he was in television. Yeah, that was really good. So I mean, there have been really good shows in recent years. You and I both loved, and I know Brian did too. Is that '70s show? Because it was so funny.
So there is one sitcom that we watch that's contemporary sitcom that we enjoy, which is Young Sheldon. I don't know if you ever watched Big Bang Theory.
I watched a couple episodes of Big Bang Theory, but I've seen like one episode of Young Sheldon.
Yeah, we really enjoyed Big Bang Theory. That's one we own and watched through and really enjoyed.
My son likes the Goldbergs.
I've only seen a few episodes of that, but Young Sheldon is not woke. Young Sheldon is good so far, and we really enjoy it. It's funny and entertaining, and so that's a good one. Modern, good show in modern era.
Yeah, so there are some that are good in modern eras. I think there are definitely some on the premium channels like HBO. Showtime had one a few years ago that I liked for the most part. There were definitely elements that I hated, and that was Black Sails.
I didn't see it. So.
It was because of the wokeism.
Most of the stuff that's on those channels is too dark and too adult for me.
Well, Black Sails was very
I'm
adult.
Not adult
it was like
enough.
It's kind of like Game of Thrones.
I'm not grown up enough to watch that kind of show, I guess.
But I really like.
I just don't like it.
Man.
They're too dark, and the nudity and language and violence and stuff is just not. It's not for me.
And completely unnecessary. You don't have to have that in the show in order to represent the time period.
And that's I checked out because I had heard that it wasn't supposed to be as bad with some of that with House of the Dragon, and so I checked out.
No, it is.
I checked out. Yeah. I checked out like the first couple episodes, and then was like, I'm not watching this anymore. It's just too dark, and I wasn't enjoying it anyway. Like I don't like it.
Yeah, you had the prequel, right? So, or the sequel, the original, and that one did have it all over the first
Game of
season,
Thrones,
especially the
yeah.
first and second. Yeah, the first and second seasons, and it was just in every single one. And it was like, oh, okay, this is just kind of unnecessary. I guess if you're a 13-year-old boy, you love it.
Well, that's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. So. Well, yeah, they're appealing to that audience. But in the new one, it's in a couple of episodes, but by and large, they've really kept it out.
Well, and yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that stuff doesn't, when specifically we're talking about the nudity, or I'm not saying there's no appeal there for me. Like, it's not like I've grown out of that sort of thing.
No. What I'm saying is it's not in every single episode. I'm saying.
I'm faithfully married to my wife, and I don't, and for religious convictions and things like that, I don't want to partake of that sort of thing. That aside, though, that's one of the reasons why I don't watch it, for sure. But even if you took that out of it entirely, it's too dark. It's just not my cup of tea. Like, it's a little bit too.
Well, it's fantasy, and I
give me Willow. I mean, without the woke.
Yeah,
like I prefer Lord of the Rings and Willow, and that's my kind of.
I don't have high hopes at all for Willow.
No.
I think it's going to be bad. I really do.
So overall, we're.
Oh, wait a minute! I forgot this one. It was in my head, and I got to bring it up because I really, really enjoyed it, and that's Free Guy.
Right, Free Guy was pretty good. It
was refreshing. It was light. It was fun.
Have you seen the Adam Project yet? I haven't seen that one yet.
I've seen yes, I've seen the Adam Project. It actually is very good.
It's good too. Okay. I'll have to check it out.
I would recommend it. Vern, my son and I, we both watched it and we really enjoyed it.
Okay, I'll check that out for sure then. Yeah, he seems when he does Ryan Reynolds does his non-adult stuff.
Like Deadpool?
Yeah, the Deadpool stuff, not like that, but when he does the family or friendly type things, I really, really like Ryan Reynolds. I sent you that preview for the
so you do have the recent Jumanji movies as well. The recent Jumanji movies have been fun. Those have been really good.
Yeah,
I've enjoyed those. Yeah, both of them.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Good call.
Yeah. Yep.
Jumanji.
Liked them.
Good show. But yeah, so that one that he has coming out with Will Ferrell.
With Will Ferrell.
Spirit. Yeah. That one looks, I mean, I'm hopeful on that one. That's one that I have outside hope for, that I think if they don't mess that up with wokeism,
a modern comedic take on Dickens. Yeah. Yep.
Well, it's just Will Ferrell and Ryan Reynolds too, singing and dancing and good stuff. I read the other day that Will Ferrell turned down doing a sequel to Elf, where they were going to pay him like $50 million or something like that to do it, and he turned it down because he didn't think the script was good enough. And so it's good for him. It's nice that he has standards on that. Yeah. Because it'd be fun if the right sequel came along and they did it and stuff. I'm not as adamant that Hollywood always has to be original as you are. But
two of my guilty pleasures are still Talladega Nights and Step Brothers.
Right. Yeah, Will Ferrell when he's on is great. I really do like Will Ferrell.
Yeah.
When he's off, I don't like Will Ferrell. He's one of those that can.
No,
I saw it. Yeah. You say you hate Martin Short because of his adult humor, and I watched this.
I don't hate Martin Short. I hate Martin Short's humor.
Yeah, and I watched this Steve Martin Short comedy special, and at first I was loving it and thought, this is great. Why does Brett not like Martin Short? This is hilarious. They're great and stuff. And then Martin Short did his solo section, and I was like, okay. I get it.
He is a dirty old man. He's
exactly.
A filthy.
It was a dirty old man.
Dirty old man.
Just not funny. It was just terrible and stuff. Mm-hmm. I still enjoyed the overall special, but that section was not funny. Not good, so.
He really is, and I've seen this for a few years, and it's really too bad because back in the 80s, you had him in The Three Amigos, you had him in Three Fugitives. And he was really, really funny, and he was fun to watch. And then he did,
and he still is when he's not being dirty.
Yeah, and then, but then you had him in Santa Claus 3, and he was just not that good.
Not that good, in that role. was okay, but
and then I started seeing him in his he did a variety show, and just in recent years, and I think it lasted for 1, maybe 2 seasons. It was horrible.
Right.
I watched a little bit of it. Oh, another one that I really like Martin Short in, though, was Captain Ron.
I haven't seen that one
with Kurt Russell. It's absolutely a must see.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely worth it. Absolutely,
I'll check it out.
It's family friendly. It's very good.
Cool, good.
You would enjoy it a lot. Yep, Kurt Russell was awesome in it.
Fun.
So, yep.
So,
absolutely.
All right. Well, there's some stuff, some recommendations, I guess, and so. But yeah, overall, I'd say the summary here is if you're into entertainment, movies and TV shows, we're in for dark days ahead. It sort of seems like. That there's not going to be a lot, and I keep hoping that things will change, but they're just not gonna. And
this is why the nostalgia for the old entertainment is so high.
Mm-hmm.
Movies that came out in the 80s, movies like the original Star Wars, like Indiana Jones, like The Goonies. All of those shows are just so popular.
Yeah, and that's
just that Forrest Gump,
those standard formulas, and going back to the book I bought and stuff. I'm sure it's going to talk about those formulas and the standard formulas, and the, if you made a movie with those standard formulas, like it'd get ripped apart on Twitter by the social justice people, but it would still be loved and it would be a hit because people ultimately they want to see good conquer evil. They want to see the knight in shining armor save the princess. They want to see those great stories and those great tropes still. And so, if Hollywood get a clue, they could make some real hits, make some money.
If we lost Tom Cruise at this point, we would really be losing somebody he's really going against the grain because his philosophy is, make good entertainment, and he did a really good. He's done a great job with the latest Mission Impossible iterations. He's done really well with the Top Gun sequel, something that has been talked about for years and years and years, and finally they started doing it. I think for the last 10 years they talked about that sequel, and they finally got around to doing it. And then of course with the whole COVID thing, they had to put it off.
And COVID's put a big kink in when they're talking about it. One of the reasons why I said we needed to include TV shows is because COVID put a real kink in movies. Like there's not a lot of great movies we could think of, but how many movies can you think of at all in the past couple of years? Like they haven't been releasing that many because of COVID. And so maybe there's more that's going to be up and coming than we think, and there'll be some hope in the future, but I doubt it. So anyway, thanks for joining us today. Right. We appreciate your time, and hopefully you got some recommendations in there of something to watch if you haven't seen it yet. I got a few. And
like and subscribe below, and comment if you have any comments about the show. Make them respectful and free of profanity, please.
Thanks. See you next time.